This is very exciting. We are doubling down on the topic that we spoke about in the previous episode around mentors and sponsors. And I really want to have an even bigger conversation today around what actually does it look like in our careers to build our own intentional board of career advisors and the different roles that we need, the kinds of people that we need in our corner, and then I guess most importantly, how do we actually find them? So this is a conversation very close to my heart, and I'm keen to dig into it today for the listeners and leave them with some provoking questions and some starting points around how they can apply it into their own careers.
This is the Rising Bold podcast, accelerated by future female leaders, for women who want to navigate work, leadership, and life with confidence. Hosted by Seeber and Emma Burdett. Wherever you are on your leadership journey, we're just glad you're here. Let's get this conversation started.
As always, before we dig into the episode, we've got to share our brave moment for the week. So I'm going to throw it to you to start with. Have you got a brave moment in your world that you can share?
Oh, yes, of course, Claire, always. Do you know what I wanted to mention today is I've come to the conclusion that as much as I try not to be, hang on, let me rephrase that because I can't even say it properly. It's so early in the morning today. I'm not a morning person, right?
You've done very well to get here this morning. The coffee hasn't even fully seeped into our veins yet.
See, right? For years, honestly, I have felt some sense of shame about not being a morning person. I don't know why. Why do we associate morning people with being the go-getter, the early bird gets the worm type thing? And for years I tried to fight it and tried to be a morning person, and it's not my prime time of thinking or doing stuff. And yeah, I don't know why I feel so much shame around it. So I'm just telling everyone in the world right now, I'm not a morning person. I will get up for the right reasons, of course, and I'll always be there. But to be able to think carefully and critically and just be completely direct with my thinking is really hard in the morning.
Yes.
I guess that's a little bit of a confession for a brave moment.
But I think a lot of people will resonate with that massively, because I get the feeling of the shame piece too, because I do think there's so much rhetoric online and on social media and all of those places around, you know, get up at 4 a.m. and do your 10,000 supplements and your cold plunge and your this and your that. And if that works for you, amazing. But that's not how everybody works. Some people get their peak creativity at 10 o'clock at night. Other people peak at 2 or 3 o'clock in the afternoon. So I actually think the best thing to do, which I know that you do, is to stop and work that out for yourself, and then to the best of your ability, try to kind of cater your deep work, your meeting conversations around that working style.
I actually went to a leadership workshop once, and one of the things that we had to do was work out I can't even remember what it was called. It was a bit of a brand archetype thing, but it was actually around your energy levels and who you are as the time of day that you like to function. And I came out as being a bear, like a grizzly bear, and which meant that my peak time of thinking is 10 a.m. till 12:30 in the morning, and then again from about o'clock until 6. That window of 2 till 3 is when I should be working out in the day, going and getting my steps, actually leaving the desk, getting the blood flowing. And when I lean into that, man, my days feel amazing.
Yeah, wild. So maybe action for the people listening is, if you haven't ever done it already, to think about, step off the dance floor and onto the balcony like of your own day, and reflect on when are the moments where you feel like you're really crisp and sharp with that peak energy versus the times in the day where you're like, I can't string a sentence together anymore. And then what changes are we able to make potentially in our days around that?
That sounds like another episode, Claire, because I think we now need to drill into how do we then communicate that to our managers and leaders, or our clients, whoever's kind of leading our day, to help make sure that they understand that, and then they don't feel that resentment, or you don't feel guilty for taking that extra time when you need it, or working around what suits you. Okay, hold that thought. We could save that for another day.
Yes, absolutely. And if you like the idea of that episode, let us know so that we absolutely run with it, and any questions that you might have around it as well.
Yes.
Love that. Great share.
Yeah, so that was me. That's my little share for the day. What's going on in your world, Claire?
Oh, gosh. This has been a big week, actually, in terms of I've been quite anxious and probably emotional a lot this week. And I've been thinking about why. And I'm very sure that it's because I feel quite exposed at the moment in a really good way, in that I'm doing things in my world and in my business in particular that I've never done before. The main one for me at the moment is this event that I'm hosting. It's the first time I've ever done anything like that before. Like, I've run events before, as you know. I do so much work with clients inside their organisations, helping bring programs and events to life. But I haven't, apart from my book launch event, I've never really run an event that I own as such. We run events for future female leaders, obviously, but this one is promoted as Unlearn by Claire Seeber and Co. It's going to be great. It's an event, one-day professional development event for modern women navigating the modern realities of work. And I'm very clear and I'm very intentional on the vision. However, the just feeling of putting yourself out there and the inner narrative that comes up with that around, like, my ticket sales monster is just going wild in my brain at the moment. Like, what if nobody comes? What if nobody buys tickets? What if people don't see value in it? Like, who are you to think that you could do this? All of the inner dialogue comes up to just like try and tear you down. But I'm just sitting with this thinking of, you have to have the audacity to put yourself out there if you want anything real to ever happen. Because just thinking about it alone does not actually drive any kind of change. The only way to learn and to grow and to win in whatever way that looks like for you is to have the audacity to actually do it. And so I'm just sitting with that tension at the moment and that absolute visceral discomfort that comes from doing something that you haven't done before and navigating the equal parts excitement and the equal parts fear, anxiety and worry of like, what if? So that would be my brave moment this week, is putting that out there and I guess also just being honest about the narrative that comes up when you do something uncomfortable.
Yeah, it's very brave. And I know that you would be terrified pushing that button of go out to my email database, go out to my community and put yourself out there and be like, I'm doing this thing. And then I'm sure you're sort of like waiting for the validation. You're going, just looking, going, anyone?
Yeah.
And I'm sure, have you had messages from people? Have you had good feedback?
So many messages from people being like, this sounds amazing.
Yes.
But then it's still such an interesting process, because then you're like, is it amazing though? Because why are you not getting a ticket? Again, we could do a whole episode just on the inner narrative and the inner dialogue and how our thinking impacts how we show up and how do we manage that, because I know so many people listening, every person actually listening, every person in the world has an inner demon, and they can have their voice and they can have their platform, but they can't have a bigger platform than the audacious voice that's like, no, I'm going to do this and I'm going to make it work.
Yeah, absolutely. I just love that you're doing it. You're showing up, you're putting yourself out there. And, you know, we spoke to school this week, some of our younger leaders this week, about having courage, facing that fear when things feel hard, and here you are doing it. And I think as a community, we're all super proud of you too. So you should be proud of yourself.
Girl.
Yeah.
And even though this sounds really obvious, it is one thing for us to get up and speak to other people about, and particularly our future generation of female leaders. Like, it's one thing to go and talk to them around, you've got to back yourself and be brave, and there's no other person on the planet like you, and that is to be valued and owned, and the stuff that I genuinely believe. But you got to drink your own Kool-Aid too, and you need to lead the charge on that, because words are not enough. People are watching what we do. They're not just watching what we say.
Absolutely. I'm going to quote your words back to you. Claire, you are doing stretchy things.
Yes. I'm stretching so hard that I have a cramp.
That's okay. Think of how flexible you'll be later.
That's it. Well, let's crack on into today's topic. I live in this space, but I really want to hear from you, people in your world, the roles that different people have played over your career and now even in your own business, that I guess have kept you upright, they've stretched you, they've enabled you to move forward, and just have a little bit of a conversation around why it is so important that as female leaders we are strategic and intentional about curating the people who we go to for certain things. Because let's be real, not everybody's feedback and not everybody's advice is created equal. And it's really easy to feel like just because somebody gave you a piece of feedback or gave you a piece of advice that you should take that on board and you should take that as gospel. Whereas, in my opinion, if those people aren't in the ring getting their ass kicked in some way as well, are they really the right people to be seeking out for growth, for guidance, for perspective, for connections, for cheerleading? I think we should be looking for people who are where we want to be, who represent the things that we want to be, and who can challenge our thinking in order to help us develop and grow. So last podcast episode, we spoke about specifically kind of mentors and sponsors. But if you think of some of the people in your world that you've met along the way that were just absolute catalysts for growth, either in you or in your career, what comes up for you?
I think one of the big ones is some kind of leader to look up to. So there's the example to see it being done and to aspire to be like that person, to learn those traits and to pick up on what works. And you can be what you can see. So if you have those role models and those people to look up to, and you don't necessarily have to have a strong relationship with them, but to be in their space, to identify that is someone I respect. That is someone I really value how they approach everything. How do I spend more time in their world? How do I see them and learn from them in action? I think that's a really big part of it. And on the other side of that is also recognizing when you're doing that and idolizing people, they're actually not the right people. This is the world we live in now, where you have all this stuff coming at you on social media and the influencer world, and then we start benchmarking ourselves against these people, and then we start thinking, oh, I need to be more like them. Do we? Is that actually the right person? So I think the role there for me is role models, not necessarily a direct mentor or a sponsor. Role models is the big one. Do you have people that you look up to in that regard?
Yes, definitely. I love what you're saying about role models. I mean, I think role models are critical, but it's also being clear on what is it about this person that I admire or aspire to, but in my own way. And to me, role models are the clues to our own value set, in that what you might look at somebody else and go, wow, I really admire the way they do that, or I really aspire the way they do that, is a good indicator of the things that are important to you in the way that you want to show up. But it doesn't mean that you copy and paste the exact same thing that person has done. You've got to work out, what does that look like for you then as the individual leader to show up in a way that's authentic for you but still mirrors what you admire in other people.
Yeah, 100%. The other thing that, as you're talking, I just realised is I lean a lot on other people who actually do similar things to me. So whilst in the business world, you might think, oh, you're competing against each other. Why would you bounce off each other? Why would you collaborate? It's really powerful to talk and have conversations about your particular passion, skill set, knowledge, experience with others who get that, and to hear that they are too having the same challenges, or they have seen this and done that. There's so much to learn from other people that on the outside world would look like your competitors.
Yeah, I think there's so much truth to that. And being able to build these really real relationships with people where you can just talk the truth. I've sat in rooms before, and I'm sure you have too, where it's supposed to be a space to be open and honest and vulnerable about our lessons and our learnings, but instead it becomes a session about hiding all of the things that are hard. And I find sometimes that I feel like sometimes I come in and I'll be like, do you know what? Business is rough. Like, it is hard, and I feel out of my depth a lot of the time, and here are all the things that I'm struggling with. And then people will look at me, and I sometimes have that feeling of like, oh, was I not actually supposed to be honest about the parts that are hard, so that then we can learn from each other in how to grow from that? And so I think there's a piece in there around finding the people in your world or assembling a board of career advisors that are confidants in that you can really be yourself with them. You admire them for who they are, and obviously there's a values alignment there, but you also know that you can have a conversation with them about the actual truth of what you're experiencing and what you're living and what the challenges are that you're really facing, instead of just the glossy top line. How's it going? Oh, it's great. I'm really busy.
Yeah. What kind of value do you get out of those conversations, really? To me, that is small talk. Boring. We all do it. It has to be done sometimes. But how much do you really take out of that? To have those people that you can just be straightforward with, brutally honest, and say, you know what, this is a tough time, or I've been really going back and forth about, have I done the right thing? Am I making the right decision? All that kind of stuff. It's a really big part. In the last episode, we talked about advocates and people in there speaking up for you. I think it applies from a cheerleading perspective as well. Having those people around you who you know truly align with your values and what you're doing and how you work. And they are the ones that see you. They see how good you are at what you do. They don't necessarily work in your world directly, but they see that you are really good, and they are the ones who are constantly propping you up. When you go, oh, maybe am I doing the right thing? Should I be doing it differently? They are the ones who will remind you of how you're perceived outside of your own little world, because they're external. They don't sit in that same corner and at that same table. They see what the world sees outside of that. And I think there's a lot of power in that, for someone to give you that fresh perspective and go, well, you might think that, but as an outsider, this is what I see, and this is what I hear, and this is what I'm told.
100%. I think a cheerleader is an essential role to keeping you upright. Because you're right, we get so in our own worlds, don't we? And often we're our biggest critics, that it can be quite overwhelming to get caught up in how you think that you are perceived, or what you think you are or are not capable of. So to then have somebody that comes along and cheerleads you and reminds you of like who you are and what you've done and how the world sees you and the things that it sees in you that maybe you don't see in itself, I think is an essential role to remaining upright and to be able to keep moving forward. So we've got, what I'm hearing is we've got cheerleaders, we've got these kind of confidants, people that we trust, that we can have the real talk with. We've got role models that don't necessarily have to be people that we have a close relationship to. They may be people from afar who we admire for certain behaviours or characteristics or ways that they show up and lead. But the important part is being clear on what those values are and what those behaviours are and why they matter to us. We spoke in the last episode also around the importance of having sponsors and mentors in our careers. The other role for me that I think is really important is finding, and to be clear for anybody listening, sometimes the same people may play more than one role. You know, it isn't about going out and putting job ads up on Seek saying, I'm currently recruiting for a confidant in my life. I'm currently recruiting
Claire,
for
please put that on Marketplace and tell us how that goes.
Oh, can you imagine if I put that on Marketplace? Oh. But I think, so there might be people who play multiple roles, right? Like I would say, using you as an example, I would say to me, in my world, you play a confidant, you also play a cheerleader, and I also think that you play an advocate a lot of the time. There are many roles that people can play. But I do think we also have to be really intentional around finding people with a totally different perspective on things, and people whose role is actually to force us to think for ourselves and challenge our thinking. They're not going to give us the answer. They're not going to give us the advice. They're not going to say to us, maybe like a mentor would, when I was in your shoes, here's what I did, so here's what I think you should do. Instead, they'd bat it back to you and say, well, talk to me about how you've navigated hard times before. What do you see here as being the outcome you're looking for? Essentially a coach. But when I talk about a coach, it doesn't always have to be a formal coaching arrangement. It also doesn't have to be a paid arrangement. It's just somebody that is intentionally different from you and who you, I guess, trust enough and believe is credible enough so that you're open to them poking you and prodding you and being like, hey, about 4 weeks ago, you said this, that you were going to do this. I've noticed you've not done it. Talk to me about what's getting in the way. And somebody that you're actually open to listening to that from, because it's not everyone.
It's so true. The thing about sports, tennis, you could have a role model. You could watch somebody who you think, wow, they are such a good tennis player. I want to be like them. And then you have the people that you play tennis with and you learn with and you go through the challenges of practicing together. And then you have the mentors that will go, oh, I remember that. When I was first learning, somebody told me this, it was really helpful. But the coach are the ones who are looking at more of a performance element, aren't they? They're going, I see the gaps here. And they're giving you that direction, and then you're doing the practice to meet what the coach is directing you to do. Well, it's the same in our careers, is having that coach. So how do you find a coach? As you said, it doesn't need to be an official engagement. Do you have to go looking for a coach? How do you even recognise that somebody would be a good coach?
If we're talking, obviously there are ways you can go out and you can find a coach and hire a coach in a more structured arrangement. But if we're just thinking about assembling people around us that can help us grow, to me the coaching lens is about zooming out of the people perhaps around you in your day-to-day and looking at who is somebody not in my echo chamber? Who is somebody that will force me to think a little bit differently? Because to me, a coach is somebody that they aren't really going to give you direction. They're going to set up the space for you to find the right direction. And so it does need to be somebody that can poke you and prod you and challenge your thinking in a way that's going to be really uncomfortable sometimes. And so for anyone listening in who's like, how do I know if I have a coach or not? Perhaps think about the person in your orbit right now that makes you feel really uncomfortable. And they ask you questions that perhaps when they ask you those questions, you're like, ugh, go away in your head. But then after that conversation, you reflect on what they said and you probably end up going, do you know what? That's right. I actually do need to take action on that. And then you do. To me, that is a really different role to some of the other ones. It's finding the person who makes you feel pretty highly uncomfortable and allows you to sit in healthy tension to consider things that you haven't considered before. Because their job is to unlock your potential, right? Like if we go back to the sporting analogy and a coach, the job is to unlock the maximum level of potential that you have to succeed in your sport. Same is true for our careers and our leadership.
We have coaches everywhere. I have a coach in the gym. Coaches for different things. Why do we all hesitate so much about having a coach in our career?
I think perhaps we think that it needs to be bigger than it needs to be, or that it has to be more formal, perhaps. And again, don't get me wrong, there are places for that are very powerful, but it doesn't only have to be a formal structured arrangement. But it might be that you go to somebody that you work with and you have a conversation with them and you say, hey, do you know what, Jo, whenever I'm with you, you say things to me or you ask me questions or you challenge me about things that they actually make me uncomfortable. But after I've had that conversation with you, I go away and I take action on them and I notice the momentum that comes from doing that. Would you be open to us having more of those conversations where I give you total ability to challenge me and to poke me and to say to me, you know, that's an interesting perspective. What have you not considered in that? And just questions like that.
I went to a business coach when I first started in business, probably about 7 or 8 years ago now. And I was just finding my way, working it all out. And I knew I had this business model that I wanted to grow. So I went to this business coach that had been referred to me and we went in for this first session and here I am all prepared about business. And he actually led with, tell me about your relationship with your parents. Ooh. And I was like, I'm sorry, what? and in particular, your father. And I was like, what? I was so thrown by that question. I didn't have a problem answering it, but it was just not what I was expecting at all. And honestly, after that first session, I walked out and I was like, what is this guy's deal?
Yeah.
I'm here for business advice. Why are we talking about family dynamics and relationships? It turns out that was absolutely the right conversation to have because that was one of the most pivotal learning things for me was to understand that when you are in business, you need to sit in your masculine energy a lot. We have to make decisions, we have to take action, we have to lead people. A lot of that is masculine energy, which comes from the masculine parent in a genetics perspective here. So how you feel and how that relationship is with that parent can very much reflect on how you feel about that part of you. And if you want to lean into that or if you want to avoid it. So a big part of the business piece is the mindset and then how you feel internally about yourself and all this. And you can imagine how what you think is going to happen versus what really happens and how you get challenged on different things. That's where everything starts to open up and you start to really thrive, but uncomfortable and weird and challenging.
Absolutely. But led to you thinking about things differently and then probably starting to take action in a few areas that perhaps had you have just gone into that conversation and they said, oh, here's an action plan, off you go, all the best. Yeah, you could pick that up and put it down. But if there's things on it that are perhaps contradictory to the space that your mindset is at the time in order to actually apply the actions that they've given you, you're not going to.
Exactly.
So they went right back, like slingshot, go right back to then move forward.
And when I think about how I got to know that person or how I was introduced, that just brings me to a final point of these people that we need to have around our world, the connectors.
Yes.
The connectors that don't necessarily know exactly what you do or how you work, but they like to connect people with people. And I think about that coach and then I think about how do I know them. There's one person in particular, now that I think about it, I knew them and I have been introduced to so many people through them. So I think having those connectors in your world is also really important to help you start conversations with the right people.
Absolutely. I think connectors are worth their weight in gold. And also, we are all connectors too. So this is about reciprocity at the end of the day. It's not just about meeting somebody and say, who can you connect me with? We love those people, we value those people, but we should also be those people for other people as well that we can support. And if I think about my world, some of the people that have really changed my life actually have been connectors and people who are so selfless and open to going, hey, you need to have a conversation with this person. Let me connect you. Let me introduce you. And then you go and you have a conversation with that person and you learn something new or you take action from a conversation with them. But then you equally as much go, hey, I know somebody that you need to meet and you're going to have a beautiful conversation with them. And then they do that. And then they're able to either just have a great conversation, learn something new, connect to other people. And ultimately, that is how we open more doors. That is how we advance people. In particular, that is how we advance women.
Yes.
Is by helping each other build our networks, build advocacy, say our names in the rooms that we aren't in, challenge us respectfully through coaching to think differently, cheerlead us to back ourselves, even when we don't perhaps see in ourselves, remind us of what the world sees, and hold space as a confidant in the moments where we tumble and or feel like we're tumbling. And so to me, those are the critical roles that we need in our careers in order to keep us upright and advancing and moving forward. I keep talking about this all day, but I invite people listening in to almost do a little bit of an inventory check, perhaps, of the people in your orbit and what roles do I currently have really intentionally? Do I have a coach that challenges me? Do I have a mentor or a role model that I admire and aspire to that I can go to for guidance and advice? Do I have that sponsor role that we spoke about in the last episode around who's got the juice in the room to actually get you to the places that you want to go? Do I have women in my world that cheer me on? Do I have women or men in my world that I trust? And do I have those people ultimately that connect me internally in my organisation or externally in my industry so that I am being stretched, so that I am positioning myself for a future where I've got other people that I can pull on and learn from as those needs become a reality?
Yeah. The final thing I just want to add on there is, have I also checked that they're contributing in a positive way?
Yes.
Or am I putting too much weight on the perspective or opinion of the wrong people? So sense check. Have I got them? And are they the right people.
100%. Also, the people that you start with now will not necessarily be the same people in 5, 10, 15 years' time. These people will evolve and grow, just like the roles that you play for other people will evolve and grow. And that's probably the last thing, is we're suggesting you think about your board of advisors from your own career and your own world. But equally as much, then flip the switch and ask yourself, who do I play these roles for? And if nobody comes to mind, then I invite you to think about how you may be able to step into these roles for the next generation of women in your world as well.
Yes, generosity. And you know who is generous? Our sponsors of the podcast, Podwave.
Very
massive
grateful for them.
cheerleaders for us. They have given us this beautiful space and the help and support of their excellent producers to help us bring this podcast to life. We would not be where we are as an organisation, Future Female Leaders, or us individually in our careers without having all of these people around us. And it takes work to keep up those relationships, but investing in them so major.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Take action, everyone. Peeps, get that pen out, start thinking.
Love it. Fabulous conversation today. If you've got any questions about how to find your board, how to find the right people, please reach out to us. We like to think of ourselves also as connectors. So if there's anything that we can do to support you in your career or your leadership journey, please reach out. Otherwise, we will see you in the next episode very, very soon.
See you later.
You've been listening to the Rising Bold podcast, accelerated by Future Female Leaders. If you've enjoyed today's episode, we would love your support. Leaving a review or rating helps more people discover the podcast. And if something from today's conversation resonated with you, please go ahead and share this episode with a friend or someone in your network who might benefit from hearing it too. Because when we share knowledge, experiences, and opportunities, we all rise together. Until next time, keep rising bold.